Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll of course know about 8 Pakistani labourers which were brutally killed by Baloch militants in Iran's Sistan, Balochistan province. This incident not only highlights the growing spate of terrorism and the threat of transnational terrorism that has raised serious questions at this time within Balochistan. We've also of course know that the role of non-state actors is clearly being seen operating with impunity across Pakistan-Iran frontier. We'll be talking about the ramifications of this rising spate of terrorism and what of course is being done, of course the resolve within all stakeholders to come down hard on this kind of terrorism as far as of course the military is concerned, as far as the government is concerned. And at this time we'll be talking about the fact that this killing has in fact triggered strong diplomatic reactions of course from Islamabad, and of course it's also prompted urgent coordination between our two neighbouring countries. We'll be talking about all of this today. I have with me today Lieutenant General retired Raza Muhammad Khan. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Dr. Tughral Yamin, who is a defence analyst. Thank you for being with us today. And Brigadier retired Masood Khan. Thank you for joining us today. Let's start with General Saab here. General Saab, this attack on innocent labourers, of course, you know, this is a line between militants and terrorists which seems to be blurred constantly. As far as this attack overall is concerned, how do you look at this, the timing of it, and of course, you know, the placement of it, and of course the way that the policy at this time as far as Pakistan is concerned, our unified resolve to come down hard on this kind of terrorism?
Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Can you hear me?
Gigi, I can hear you, yes.
All right. Unfortunate incident, but this was not the first one. And I think there have been such incidents in the past as well, which are emanating from the Iranian border that is close to our border in Balochistan, particularly the Sistan area, which again, like our portion of Balochistan, is relatively mountainous and very scantily populated. I've been to that area, you know, from both sides. And I know that there are certain areas, which are not correctly or appropriately protected, particularly from the Iranian sides. But it's heartening to note that, every time there are such attacks, whether it is inside the Iranian territory or on our side of Balochistan, I think the government and the people of Iran, they've always condemned such attacks. And soon after the Jafar Express incident, I think it was at the highest level that the government of Iran offered to the government of Pakistan all its help and support to jointly, tackle these terrorists who are hurting our national security interest. And I think it is on that account that the two governments need to increase their cooperations in that area by way of
in that context, do you think that, as far as the strategic implications of this incident for Pakistan's overall Western border policy, how do you look at that? And, are we now facing a multi-pronged threat from, transnational non-actors at this time? How do you look at that?
Yes, it was always been like that, as I said, that these terrorists are using mainly the Afghan territory and partially the Iranian territory. The Iranians have now started, constructing a very large-scale security border wall on their side. And I think one has to wait and see. It sits between Iran and Afghanistan. Our border fence is also there. And I think once these fences and on that side the Iranian border is completed, things will improve. But I think both the countries, they need to continue intelligence sharing and cooperation, and even agree to joint sort of operations against these terrorists. That is the only way, that this threat to their security can be eliminated. At the same time, there has to be, a combination of approaches by Pakistan, and in that, I think
I want to come
it
to
has
that.
to be.
Let's come to that in detail, Jan Sab. Like you said, a combination of approaches. Let me come back to you on that. Masood Sab, this is, as far as from a military logistics perspective, how feasible is it, in your opinion, to secure such a porous and difficult border? Because this is what, General Saab was also saying, in the context of course, it's a border, and the manning of the border overall. Are we investing in modern border surveillance and fencing at this time, when we look at, the way things are being done overall?
Before coming to fencing, I would like to add something. And this is not the first time as the killing of innocent Pakistani laborers inside of Iran, and that has confirmed the presence of the terrorist organization inside Iran. And basically this also showed the regrouping of the terrorist outfits in Iran. Basically, when Afghan Taliban took over Afghanistan on 15 August 2021, and some of the terrorist organizations, they relocated to Iran, although they had been in Iran previously also. And we saw last year on 16 January, when Iran carried out missile strike inside Pakistan, we responded on 18 January. So there was a mechanism which was in place, and unfortunately, I don't know, that didn't work at all. But as far as now coming out of the defense system, Pakistan has taken considerable steps. First of all, as far as the fencing is concerned, we have fenced the 909-kilometer border. 91% has been fenced, and in addition to that, we have already constructed 40% of the additional forts along the border with Iran. In case of Afghanistan, 98% border has been fenced and 92% forts they have been constructed. That is one thing. Secondly, the Frontier Corps has been divided into two parts. A major portion, that is Frontier Corps South, is now responsible mainly to look after the borders with Iran and a portion of Afghanistan border. That is the second important thing. And then we have intelligence-based operation. Daily we carry out 180 intelligence-based operations. So we carry out and look after these. Besides, we are having the surveillance equipment. So we have the capacity, but it is very difficult at time when you are facilitated by the locals.
Okay, we talk about fencing, and I think you've gone into detail with regard to what is being done there. But do you think, if this is also, a kind of terrorism which is now extending? And when we talk about, don't you think there needs to be across the board, all stakeholders, and the fact that, there needs to be a combination of ways to deal with this kind of terrorism by different specific, for example, CTD. Is that also happening?
That is very important thing. That was what the concept which was basically presented through the concept of Azam-e-Istehkam, where it was decided that every organization, institution will play their role instead of looking for everything on army, resting their responsibilities that army will look after. So it is the responsibility of not only the civil armed forces but also levies. Unfortunately, 84% area in Balochistan is covered under the responsibility of levies. So there is a requirement that everybody, whether it is the law enforcing agencies, the CTD, the district administration, the judiciary, police, everybody has to play. If we play our roles with sincerity, certainly we are going to address at least some of the issues. So like this situation which is now building up in the province of Balochistan.
Dr. Yamin, as far as this rise of Baloch militant groups, operating transnationally across Pakistan-Iran border, has there been an increase in your opinion? Would you say that this is a new phase in Baloch insurgency, or is this part of a long-standing trend in your opinion?
It's a part of a long-standing trend. This has been the pattern. This is not the first time it has occurred.
Okay.
Punjabi mechanics and labor have been killed. Last
the
year
role
also
of BLA also.
By BLA. This time BNA has claimed that we have done
Yes.
it. But it's a fact that labor across the border have been killed. One thing I would like to find out, how many Pakistanis are actually working inside Iran, Balochistan or Sistan. I don't think we have the figures for that. Perhaps our embassy has those figures.
Okay.
So I think these people have to be mapped and the exact number should be known where they are. For example, this time they were in the village of Mehsud, which is not on the border, it's quite deep inside Iran. So
Right.
these people have to be protected, they have to be guarded, they are poor people, they're there to earn some money for their poor families. So this
Right.
is a problem, nothing new about it. We know that Kulbhushan Yadav was captured in 2016 and he was a fifth columnist in Pakistan who was working against CPEC and doing other kind of disruptive activity also. And we also remember that Narendra Modi on his Republic Day address 2016 from the ramparts of Red Fort said very categorically that the people of Balochistan are going to be thankful to me. And then one of the earliest questions that you asked was about the timing. Timing, it's important because we see that BNM is sitting in Mastum. They want Dr. Mahrukh Baloch to be released. That is one of their major demands. That has happened. Jafar Express incident has happened.
That's
so
what
all
I want to
these
come
things
to. That it's actually, there's a
cumulative
rise.
thing.
It's a cumulative thing. So there's also a rise. There's a spike at this time. And I want to include General Saab in this also. General Saab, don't you think that it's also time for us to talk about, and of course it's being done, but our preparedness at this time in dealing with this spate and this rise and this spike that we are looking at this time in this kind of terrorism?
Well, I think our armed forces and the government is fully prepared, but I think it can be improved. And as I was saying, earlier, that the government is, using multiple approaches. One is, the unilateral approach, and there is now a fresh resolve to employ all elements of national power, which is military, political, diplomatic, economic, national cohesion, and all that. I think
because the last time it was 2016, correct me if I'm wrong, when Kulbhushan Yadav was caught. So there's been a considerable time period in the middle also.
Well, if you allow me to complete my argument, I think I'll answer that also. So what I was saying is that it's only very recently after the Jafar Express incident that major reforms have been now considered, including the reappraisal of the National Action Plan, strengthening of the provincial action plans. And when I talk of the reappraisal of the National Action Plan, that now includes, not only the defensive component of, defeating the terrorist cis frontier inside the country, but now it also includes an offensive or a trans frontier component as well to maintain our posture of deterrence of these terrorists. Then, of course, it is being done bilaterally, as I said, with Iran, with China, with the United States. There is a U.S. delegation in Pakistan as we speak right now. There are 3 congressmen here. Before that, I think there was a call from the U.S. Secretary of State to our foreign minister, and I think both the countries agreed on, addressing the joint sort of concerns emanating from Afghanistan. And then, of course, we are taking it, bilaterally with the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, all of whom have now security and economic stakes inside Pakistan. I'm talking now of the CPEG, and I'm talking of the RICODIC, SANDC, and other projects. Then, of course, there is the regional approach, and in the regional approach, I'm talking of our cooperation on counter-terrorism with all countries which are bordering Afghanistan, including the Central Asian republics. And at the global level, we are trying our utmost to make sure that the over 7 billion US NATO weapons which were left in Afghanistan, to do something about it. And President Trump has even tried to tell the Afghan government for their return. So far they're reluctant. He has even floated the idea of buying them back so that they're denied to the terrorists. So if and this has to be done collectively, not by the US and Pakistan, but because they were all NATO caliber weapons which belong to NATO countries. I think NATO needs also, to put all its pressures and all its efforts, make sure that either the interim government of Afghanistan, they disarm these terrorists with these weapons in particular, or returns these weapons to NATO and Afghanistan or whoever else they are supposed to be going back to. If they do not do that, then I think the government of Pakistan has a legitimate rights to go after the caches of these weapons wherever they may be in Afghanistan, to deny their use to the terrorists. And I think that can be done through combined efforts at the global level, using the UN Security Council, and as I said, all other countries whose national security is being threatened by the terrorists.
Right, fair enough. Let me go to Brigadier Sahib. Brigadier Sahib, I think General Sahib has summed it up quite sufficiently, but we know that this has been happening. These attacks have been happening even on the Chinese overall, for a while now. We know that there has been a consistent spate of terrorism, and we have the National Action Plan. It's been a while for that. Do you think that there is a need for a rethink in policy, and there is a need for an overall, like a proactive approach versus a reactive one, which we've also is a cause of concern,
Yes, we have already basically reviewed our previous policies, and that's why we, for the first time now, we have given a clear-cut policy as far as when we talk of Afghanistan. So there is a categorically the policy which has been number of times Chief of Army Staff has been discussing these points, that there will be no status quo issue, there will be no status quo in future, there will be no appeasements, no apologies. We will not say it is let's move ahead while ignoring the an incident. So that is one thing. And secondly, importance now is on the becoming in a hot state instead of becoming a soft state. So that's why recently we have taken some of the concrete steps to ensure that we are as a hot state. So therefore, this what has happened today in this morning in Iran. So there is a requirement that Iran needs to explain to us why this has happened. It was not the first time. That was an important thing. Secondly, there had been several cross-border attacks emanating from Iran in the past, and then there is a requirement, if there was the second time or this was happened in the past also, so there was a requirement of carry out profiling or the mapping of the Pakistanis living especially in Sistan, Balochistan at different places. But generally the impression which we are getting now, so it was a planned sort of an attack on those Pakistanis. So there is a requirement now, we should demand from the Iranian authorities
that they explain this.
They explain to us why this has happened. Secondly, if they don't have any links or communication with these terrorists, they must, if at all, if they have, they must sever their relations or links with them. Secondly, they must take action against those involved in the killing of these Pakistani laborers. Thirdly, they should, if they cannot do, then they should hand over. They must be captured, or they should be handed over to us. or if they don't do anything, then Pakistan can go
And
when
Pakistan reserves the right to take action
we can reserve the right,
themselves.
we can go our way. Then,
Right,
yeah.
fair enough. Dr. Tughral, we know that there were attacks on CPEC when we look back in. And then, we saw a government that came in and suddenly, the attention and the kind of detailing that was needed seemed to sort of deflect from CPEC. Do you think that there was a lapse there? There should have been more concentration on the overall, this kind of terrorism, on the way to circumvent it, on change in policy at that time, and there was a little time lapse there?
I think you're quite right. We have actually, our attention has wavered along the line. CPEC at the government level, we lost focus and then we had to refocus. All those things are there. But currently, as the topic is terrorism, and how is terrorism affecting CPEC?
The reason why I'm asking is because, of course, we have to look back at history and where we can learn and where the problems originated from.
But now we are on track now. CPEC is again,
and we don't, of course, want to repeat those problems.
Absolutely right. The lessons should be learned, and they should not be repeated.
Do you think that currently we have a proactive approach now?
We have a proactive approach. Sometimes it has been a knee-jerk reaction also. For example, what happened with Jafar Express shouldn't have happened. What happened at Quetta railway station shouldn't have happened. We did things in hindsight. I think there was some intelligence lapse on our part. Let's be very clear about that. But I would again like to go trans-frontier, where our citizens are being killed.
Fair enough.
I think it's an urgent requirement that our embassy in Tehran carries out a total audit and survey of where our labor is working in Iran, in Sistan, Baluchistan, because these people were from Bahawalpur. They were not from Balochistan. They had gone from Bahawalpur. Bahawalpur is quite deep into Pakistan. They had gone there, and they were living in a shed there. They were denter painters, and the incident that happened a year ago, again, they were denters, painters. So how many of these people are there? They must have consular access.
You're saying that those statistics need to be investigated.
Our embassy should find out how many people are there, and they should demand from the
but
Iranian
I'm sure
government
that
they should provide them
it.
proper security. They should not be left to the whims and fancies of terrorists. But the way they were killed, the terrorists barged into that shed. They bound them with ropes, and they mercilessly killed them. They were poor people. They had nothing. They had gone far from their homes to earn their labor. So I think there is a requirement from our side also to be very, very proactive. Find out where our people are.
Like I was saying. Right. General Saab, do you think that, there was an unfortunate incident, if you remember, last year also, and, with Iran. Do you think that there is need, do you think that the policy at this time with regard to cooperation is the way forward, with regard to the past also, and the way for us in the future? And like Dr. Tughral is saying, of course, our government must be on it, and our security forces must be on it in terms of the statistics and the way that this was carried out as a whole.
Yes, absolutely. If you see, the Iranian response on this, there are two components. One is that they've said that they have already ordered, an inquiry, and they will find out all the details. And I'm sure they will share the findings of that inquiry with the government of Pakistan. At the same time, they've also said that there are elements involved who do not want to, who do not want to see cordial relations between Iran and Pakistan. So they're looking at that also, and I think we should also look at that. Who are these people, who may actually be, sponsoring these terrorists who are there on that side? We know who they are on our side. Then, of course, we have to see if these people or the people in the past who were working there in Sistan, Balochistan, did they go there, legally, or did they go there illegally? That needs to be found out, and I think we should be knowing this very soon. Once we get information, from the government of Iran, and then corrective actions need to be taken. But having said that, I'd like to come back to what I was saying, what the government of Pakistan is doing about it. You see, it was very recently, I think it was last week, that under the Ministry of Interior, there are new setups coming up. One is actually about the intelligence fusion cell, which is amongst the provinces and the federation. Previously, this was being done by NACTA, but now I think it is going. It is a reform, sort of an effort by the Interior Ministry, which will be headed by the Interior Minister himself. At the same time, I think they are taking concrete measures to improve, border control both between Afghanistan and Pakistan and Afghanistan and Iran. And it's not that is going to include, whether it's the smuggling of dollars or the smuggling of weapons and equipment, because most of these weapons that are coming here to Pakistan, and I'm talking of the NATO caliber weapons, are also being smuggled inside Pakistan, and it is being smuggled, using both international currency as well as local currencies. It's not only the borders at Torkham and Chaman, where vigilance is being increased, but I think all the other points, the smaller points of entries between Afghanistan and Pakistan, they are going to be now guarded, with additional surveillance and security forces. Incentives being given to the government of Pakistan, to the government of Afghanistan, whether it's in tariff, which is only now 2% of tax, I think. Then they have this most favored nation status when it comes to trade. We are giving them political and diplomatic support internationally and locally. I think very soon, if the policies of Afghanistan do not change, these incentives will change into disincentives. And because we are aware, that there is a religious government of Afghanistan, we are impressing upon them that they should follow the edict of their own supreme leader, where he said that any attacks emanating from Afghanistan against bordering countries is not jihad. That should now be, also applicable to all those terrorists, whether it's TTP, BLA, or ISIS, or others who are living in Afghanistan. If they don't do that, they will lose their own, credibility, because they would be violating the fatwa of their own leaders. So these are some of the additional measures, and we hope that they will work in future.
Right, and let me go to Brigadier Sahab. Brigadier Sahab, overall, in terms of where we are at this time, we know that we have a hard, the policy at this time is in targeting these terrorists, and in terms of inclusiveness, in terms of bringing this kind of, bringing this kind of terrorism, dealing with it in, for example, bringing people in the mainstream, do you think that policy also, perhaps we need to come to some kind of a medium with regard to this, or you think that it was part of the National Action Plan, but this is the policy at this time, and this is what we've seen, and this is likely to be more feasible for Pakistan at this time?
You mean bringing the terrorists to the mainstream? Probably this is not possible at present, no.
And stopping their recruitment,
yeah,
and of
exactly.
course dealing with them that way.
We have taken
because of our youth, because of our nation, you understand, right?
Yeah. Certainly, though we have taken number of steps, but unfortunately the things which are happening inside Afghanistan, and whatever is happening, that is, we say the epicenter is Afghanistan, unfortunately, and as far as the recruitment is concerned, they are getting now the Afghans, they are joining the Fitna al-Kharij, even also some from Pakistan also. But unfortunately, despite all the fact, we have exhausted all our options as far as Afghanistan is concerned. But recently, when Ambassador Sadiq was in Afghanistan, so he met the Afghan officials, and according to reports, his visit was declared as a success, and there were reports that in private, the Afghan officials, they acknowledged that the Fitna al-Kharij is an issue between the two governments. But they are afraid, there is a fear, if they take some action against Fitna al-Kharij, they may defect and join Islamic State of Khorasan. So that is one factor. But despite all this, but still we have this diplomatic options of now going for a international aggressive diplomacy involving the important political player regionally and internationally, and besides taking Afghanistan diplomatically by, as we have seen recently, Ambassador Sadiq going, and maybe at times sort of a religious diplomacy, meeting with Amir of the Afghan Taliban in Kandahar, sort of a religious diplomacy. But at the same time, the rules of engagement, they have been very made clear that if sovereignty of Pakistan, territorial integrity is violated, certainly there will be a response. So that is that this has been conveyed by the Ambassador Sadiq when he visited Afghanistan. On two accounts, he gave evidence of the Fitna al-Kharij and Afghan nationals' involvement in Bannu attack. The Afghan national was involved, and then the Jafar Express attack, where the mastermind was inside Afghanistan. He was in communication with those terrorists attacking the Jafar Express. And the recent news, which there was a plot which was unfiled of attacking PF base Masroor, again Afghan national. There were 5 Afghan national, including 4 Pakistanis. They have been captured, planning for almost a year and so. So unless Afghan Taliban dismantle these safe havens inside Afghanistan, and certainly there is the important positive development is that the United States, the President Trump and the Vice President, the Secretary of Defense, etc., they have taken very serious note of the weapons left worth $7.12 billion weapons. J.D. Vance, the Vice President, said $80 billion assets they were given to Afghans, which have been left behind. So there is a serious concern, and more importantly,
but it's a lapse by the US, of course.
Yes, exactly. They acknowledge and they blame it. They accuse the Biden administration for this failure. But important development is that the document which was released, the threat to the international, that was the terrorist threat. So they have concluded, the 18 US agencies, this was on 18 March last month, that Fitna al-Kharij they have declared has become a potential threat to world peace. And Pakistan was telling the international community for the last 4 years. So now they have acknowledged. So we can see in the near future some cooperation, some assistance from the United States.
Right, fair enough. One hopes that it's not too little too late in that case. But let me go to Dr. Tughral. Dr. Tughral, there's a debate. You know, we know that Balochistan is a huge area. It's the territory itself. There's a debate now at this time about whether, you know, going back to the pre-1 unit level is an option as far as Balochistan is concerned, you know, for the...
I beg your pardon?
Because of governance, you know, geographically, when it is divided in 3 different territorial entities, and it's, you know, in terms of governance, in terms of controlling terrorism, all of those things. How do you view that?
I think it's a very good idea. Balochistan is 44% of Pakistan's land mass. Huge territory. It's on the boil. It's Pakistan's soft underbelly. You have got all kinds of minerals over there, Rekodek, Sandak, gold, copper, coal, everything is there. But it is, people are very poor, population is very scanty. So if it is divided into, for example, 3 units, as you were saying, one thing people have been asking, that there should be a Southern Pakhtunkhwa, because the Pashtuns are 50%, Baloch maybe not even 50%, they are Makranis. There are so many nationalities, ethnic people from different ethnic backgrounds who live in Balochistan. So it's not Baloch per se who dominate Balochistan. So it can be a very good idea to have divide it into, you said 3, I have been hearing about 2 entities, but it
for management purposes.
Absolutely, why not? Pakistan should be broken up into more provinces. That has been a subject of debate for a very long time. So I think, and another point, very good point that you have brought up in the last point that you raised about inclusivity. 3 of Balochistan's universities are closed, they have been shut down. So there is a need that we ought to be proactive with the young people, particularly. They should not get a sense that they are being alienated. There should be discussions with them. Otherwise, they will fall into the trap of this secessionist and all.
But Dr. Tughral, you know, that's what I was trying to say. But now there is a debate because of what we are experiencing, the kind of terrorism that we have seen, innocent lives that are being lost, laborers you yourself mentioned who have nothing, you know, and just gone to work from Bahawalpur. Then, you know, the question is that hard policy is needed, or do we go back? That's the debate, right? The inclusivity debate versus the hard state, which is in debate at this time.
The hard state is what the army chief wants, and that's very correct, because army is trained to deliver the kinetic approach, but kinetic approach always go in parallel with the political
You're
approach.
saying both can
have to be in
it's a
tandem.
balance, and
Absolutely.
it can be.
You have to engage with the Baloch politically, so you find out their problems. Dr. Abdul Malik Baloch has just visited
Yes,
Nawaz Sharif
Saab also,
so I think
yes.
that's a correct approach. You should engage with them politically. Hard state, we have to tell them that we mean business.
Yes, of
We will
course,
not
there's no
appease
denying that.
them.
Right, I want to go with the same question to General Saab also. General Saab, there is, you know, like Dr. Tughral said, it's true that, you know, the two are not mutually exclusive upon another. Political engagement, like we saw again the meeting between me and Nawaz Sharif Saab, and, you know, overall in terms of engagement with the Balochis on the one hand, and of course the hard state policy that we at this time have, can both work together to create, you know, a better relationship, of course, with the Balochs, along with circumventing these kind of spates of terrorism that we are looking at, right?
Okay, you know, when it comes to the issue of political dialogue, then you have to draw a line somewhere. If there are these terrorists who do not recognize the Constitution of Pakistan, who do not recognize, you know, the provincial uh, parliament, and those who are playing in the hands of our enemies for the sake of money, and those, you know, who claim to be Muslims, but they kill their brother Muslims even in the month of Ramzan, we should not be talking of any kind of dialogue, whether political or non-political, with this category of people. Then there is this category of so-called Naraz Baloch, or the missing person. In my view, I think this also needs to be, you know, analyzed. Where do the sympathies and the loyalties of these people lie? When it comes to, you know, the missing persons, I think there is no such thing as a missing person. Probably, maybe there are a few, and this is being used as a propaganda against the security agencies by the people who are actually involved in terrorist activities sitting outside Pakistan, but blaming the security agencies for that, and keeping our judiciary unfortunately entangled with them, with the support of certain lawyers. I consider that that is very, very unfortunate. Yes, other categories than this that I've talked about, they need to be brought, they need to be mainstream through every means available to the government, both at the political, at the provincial, as well as the border, as well as the federal level. I think we also need to very clearly flag the role of India in all that is happening here. And they are using both Iranian as well as Afghan territory to, you know, sabotage our economic progress. We need to clearly, you know, point it to, I'm sure it will be done, to this US delegation which is visiting Pakistan, and also, you know, to the US State Department and to the National Security Department. This is important that we do that. Similarly, you know, there was the dropping of a bounty, you know, on one of the Afghan leader. I think that is also a tool which the United States could use, dropping or, you know, remaining it to be as it is, depending, you know, on the attitude of the Afghan leadership to our mutual security concerns, as one of the, you know, one of the measures available to both Pakistan as well as the United States to guard their own security. Finally, I'd like to, quote what the Qaid had said, to the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan before the Constitution was made. And he said that it is the responsibility, I'm quoting it, he says, quote, the first duty of a government is to maintain law and order so that, the property and the lives of the citizen is protected. So I'm sure the government of Pakistan is aware of this and they're considering that. And for that, if they want to grant themselves additional legal, judicial, constitutional powers to themselves, they must do that. And if they want to also, extend some of these powers to the law enforcement agencies, they must not hesitate in doing that also.
Right, fair enough. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Tughral Yamin, thank you for your time. Brigadier Retired Masood Khan, thank you for being with us today. Of course, the state of Pakistan remains extremely vigilant. It continues to ensure the safety of its citizens. Of course, Balochistan is no exception to that. The latest spate of terrorism is something that is being dealt with in an adequate manner. We also know that America has also accepted responsibility for the cache of a huge number of weapons to the tune of some $80 million that were left behind in Afghanistan. All of these factors and the fact that Pakistan has suffered for the kind of terrorism that is unfortunately not our own. That said, we remain, the state of Pakistan remains resolved to ensure the safety of its citizens, and we of course know that everything and every step is being taken to ensure that Balochistan remains safe, the citizens of Balochistan remain safe, and our hearts go out to the families of those laborers who of course lost their lives in this attack. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.